I got to do this. Because when it is more government, but it's also how the left has become the moral authoritarian. So let me start this segment by asking you guys a question. Which political party, pop quiz everybody, was trying to get content and music banned in the 90s? Which political faction?
The Republicans.
It was the Republicans.
I was born in 96, so I don't remember.
Oh yeah, it doesn't. In the late 90s. I remember. So Magic the Gathering, for instance, we actually have this card downstairs called Unholy Strength. Magic the Gathering, of course, is a strategic card game with fantasy themes, and there's an image of a guy with a pentagram behind him, and it was conservative religious families who complained and forced the company to remove the image of the pentagram because it was satanic. Check out this story. Illinois lawmaker seeks ban of Grand Theft Auto game following rise in carjackings. And which political party does this Illinois lawmaker who is trying to ban a video game belong to? What would you guess?
Well, the party affiliation is not in the title, so
I know.
So the rule is Democrat.
That's the rule, yes.
That's the rule.
You're correct.
I think he's a statist. Is he a statist?
Yes.
Okay, good.
Sure. He's a Democrat. A Democrat is trying to get a video game banned. This is it. I'm sorry, everybody. First of all, when was the last Grand Theft Auto game made? 2013?
No, more recent than that.
No.
GTA 5, 2016?
Yeah.
No, I think
someone
you're
look
wrong.
it up.
Sure, yeah, we gotta look it up.
But I remember seeing so many Republicans when one of the Grand Theft Autos had a scene with a working woman.
2013.
Is it really?
Yeah.
They ported it to PC later.
Yeah. Yeah, but I remember the
outcry. Wait. GTA 5 came out for PS3? Is that really the latest Grand Theft Auto?
Wow.
It's been a hot minute.
Yeah, it's been a while.
It's been a hot minute.
So listen. You got a guy, a Democrat, trying to ban a video game that's going on like 8 years old because carjackings went up. I blame you, Ian.
I see the link.
Because you're the one who said
it doesn't make people want to carjack cars. It just makes it easier to do. That's what the
I think he
the
watched
evidence
the
points
video
to.
with Ian describing what he said and came to that conclusion.
You
But
see?
the one super chatter said like video game violence. I was like, do video games make people commit more violence? It was like, no, it doesn't make people want to do it. It just makes it easier to pull the trigger. They do it. That's why they train soldiers.
Exactly. Yeah, we talked to somebody about that. They say the military will use these
the guy from the ranch.
Yeah. It doesn't make people more likely to. It makes it easier for those too. So that I understand.
Family Guy did a whole cutaway about that.
About video games?
Well, specifically Grand Theft Auto, where Peter loses his memory and it's like, oh, just here, play this game so you can remember how to drive, and then you see him carjacking. So it's stealing money.
So this Illinois guy, Rep. Marcus Evans Jr., has introduced a bill that would amend a pre-existing law banning certain video games from being sold to minors. His amendment would ban the sale of games with subject matter including motor vehicle theft with a driver or passenger present. The amendment has yet to be voted on. There have been renewed debates around the ban after carjackings among young people have gone up recently. The bill would prohibit the sale of some of these games that promote the activities that we're suffering from in our communities. A 16-year-old was arrested in charge of the carjacking on Monday. Days ago, there were two 15-year-olds arrested. I got to just say, I really don't think these kids are playing GTA and being like, dude, I got an idea. Let's go carjack for real. Yeah, that's so smart. And they high five and they just go outside and they're like, yo, give me your car. And that's
I don't know. We live in a generation of Tide Pods.
That's true.
Nobody was eating Tide Pods. That was not real.
But when it comes to intelligence, by and large, and it comes to our education system, we are failing. That's the bigger point I'm making here. And I think that's true. But also, most importantly, especially with this Grand Theft Auto thing, I believe it was Republicans that made it so you needed to show an ID card to show that you're old enough to buy certain video games just a few years ago. I remember there was such a massive outcry against GTA. There was one particular scene with a working woman that everyone was screaming about, and they actually came pretty close in banning the video game a couple years ago. So it's just absolutely absurd to still see this nonsensical argument being made right now, but it's the perfect representation of what government is. Absurd and stupid.
I don't know about that Republican ID thing. I just tried to Google it. I couldn't find it. But I do have the story where The Verge writes, Trump and Republicans continue to blame video games for their failures on gun control. They say there's no evidence, but it's a talking point that has been repeated since Columbine.
Amazing.
Following two, we'll call them mass tragic events, they say lawmakers and government officials offers thought and prayers to take no action. House Minority Leader Kevin McCarthy told Fox and Friends that video games dehumanize individuals. In a speech today, President Trump pointed at video games specifically as the root cause of these events. We must stop the glorification of violence in our society, he said. This includes the gruesome and grisly video games that are now commonplace. sounds like Ian, when you said before that video games were leading to this, you were far right.
I would like to ask Julio about this because you're actually in the military. You're in the reserves. What branch of the military are you in?
Marine Corps.
And what do you think about violence in video games and how it associates?
I mean, I don't think that's true in the sense that that's the cause for it. I mean, you have to look at just the whole environment and obviously who the person is. I mean, I think in terms of desensitizing, maybe.
Yeah.
But in terms of it being the trigger behind it, no, I don't.
Or like encouraging it.
Encouraging it, yeah, because you separate the two. I mean,
it is an interesting point that Trump and Republicans were then bringing up, dehumanizing, essentially. Like we learned from it was the fellow from Fortitude. Is that what who were you saying?
Yeah, Fortitude Ranch.
Yeah.
He was saying the military. So I brought this up because there's this movie called The Men Who Stare at Goats.
Yeah.
And it was this like project where they tried doing psychic spies. It's a real thing apparently.
Yeah.
And in the movie you've got what's the guy's name? Is it Jeff Bridges, the actor? Is that his name? I don't know.
Sounds right.
Which one?
But
Well,
the actor in the movie Men Who Stare at Goats. They were talking about how he was in Vietnam, and this like Vietnamese woman runs out into a field, and all of the American soldiers, they don't shoot, and then he's like, "What are you doing? Start shooting!" And they shoot up to purposefully miss. And so the dude who was here said the way they combat that is using active targets. Like they used to just do like a target. Now they do a shape like a person, and they do first-person video games, so that now it's in the people's minds of what a person looks like. So the general idea is that video games don't make people more violent, but a violent person would help them essentially if they were going to commit an act. They would not be averse to shooting a person, right?
I mean, I don't know. I mean, I just have a hard time. I just have a hard time believing that's the main factor that's going to drive somebody. I mean, and you look at you just look at the history. I mean, you don't want to talk about. Be careful when you talk about mental illness, but Adam Lanza from the Newtown.
Right.
I mean, there's just so many other things. Although I think he did.
Right.
I think he did play video games, though. I think.
Well, I think everybody plays video games.
Yeah.
Well, right.
They used to claim Dungeons and Dragons was going to make kids go crazy.
And
it's violence.
I mean, I will say, because like from the riots that I covered a lot. I mean, it was just back to back to back, and I found myself being very bored. And so I think there's an adrenaline aspect for certain high stress events, and not necessarily school shootings, but I can see that because there was some stuff that would happen that I would see and report on, and it would be sad and be tragic, but I'd have a hard time finding emotion behind it just because I had seen it over and over and over personally.
So that would be the desensitization.
That'd be kind of the desensitization aspect. And so like I would recognize that it would like, okay, like this is bad and this is sad, but it didn't have the same effect the very first.
Yeah, they do this to many police departments. They play very violent riot footage and officers getting hurt right before they go out. I've seen many reports of this before they go out cover many protests. So a lot of them are jacked up. A lot of them are ready to prepare to defend themselves, and most protests usually don't get violent. They're becoming more and more violent, but again, psychologically the video is such an important component in making people realize that there's something else bigger out there. It plays on the imagination, but it also plays on your visceral senses, where you get to see it and you get inundated in it in such a way where you believe you're actually in it. So video is one of the biggest forms of propaganda that we should be, of course, made aware of, and especially question when certain traumatic videos are being played over and over and over again, especially on mainstream media.
Dude, you were watching a movie yesterday or something, and it was like a guy just hitting another guy, just beating on his face.
Oh, Taken.
Taken
3.
Yet another violent movie. I mean, we're talking about so much violence in the movie industry. It is punching, even all the Marvel movies, just punching and beating and throwing and blasting.
Listen. Everything. Like 90, I'm just giving an exaggerated number, but the overwhelming majority of content is violence.
Guns.
Every Marvel movie, these are some of the biggest movies ever made. Literally all of them violence.
The Mandalorian,
that was all violence.
Yeah. It was great.
Yeah. Game of Thrones, violence, war, video games, violence, conflict. The biggest games, like even Minecraft has violence in it to a certain degree.
Yeah, sure.
It's not the worst. I shouldn't rag on Minecraft. But you look at some of the biggest games, Fortnite, violence. I don't know if people are still playing Fortnite. Grand Theft Auto, the game where you drive around, run people over, and do crazy things. There is this component of video games that conflict is one of the big components of our entertainment. I wonder why that is. I'd love to talk to a psychologist or a psychologist about this. What about violence is like such an entertaining value for us? Is it because it's conflict, because it's risk, it's a threat, it scares you, and then you overcome it? What we've seen from this is there have been feminists who want to create what people call walking simulators, video games where it's like your mission is to go and hold hands with someone and earn points because they want to get away from that. But people don't like it. People like even if you go back to Mario, like the original Mario on NES, you play a dude who runs around punching bricks and stomping turtles and then kicking them.
It's like it's fast-paced geometric competition, kind of like throwing baseballs at each other like dodgeball. But it doesn't have to be shooting someone and killing them. It just is in the visage of that. So like, I think why people like it is because it's fast-paced geometry.
Splatoon.
And you're learning how like, what's that?
Splatoon.
What's Splatoon?
You were a bunch of like squid critter people and you sprayed paint on them.
Yeah, same fast-paced geometry. So that's
People love
what
that game.
we're really learning is how to interact, hand-eye coordination. We're challenging each other to see who's got faster reflexes. But it's in the guise of a violent gun. You know, it's the AR. It's all these realistic guns. The graphics are getting so realistic that if you're in like VR, you'll really maybe even start to believe you're killing someone. Like it's possible.
I got it. Right now, the big problem is not the Republicans for the most part. It's a Democrat who wants to ban these video games. The only thing we have to do to make sure that nobody comes and bans our video games is make all of the bad guys have Donald Trump's face.
Boom, done, nailed it.
There it is. Because think about it. Republicans might actually complain and say, I demand this game banned, but who's going to listen to the Republicans? They can't get anything done. they'll be like, I am upset about these games got to get banned. I'll say, get out of here. Just shut up. And then if you make all of the NPCs, any character that could die has Donald Trump's face, the left will be like, I see nothing wrong with this. All violent. You made the most gruesome and brutal violent video game like Doom was legit, like super violent. But just, make it Trump and they'll allow it. They'll stop complaining. They'll immediately come to the defense. Someone should make a mod for GTA where everyone's face is Donald Trump and show it to that Democrat and he'll go, oh, you know what? I think this game is actually okay. I withdraw my bill.
I'm a huge video game nerd, as you probably know. If you don't know, I'm a huge video game nerd, Julio. I got really mixed feelings about video game violence. Like, I wasn't allowed to watch violent movies growing up.
Yeah, same here.
Because they didn't want to twist my mind. My parents, I saw Nightmare on Elm Street 2 when I was like 10, and I remember the veins getting sucked out of that guy, and it like stuck in my brain for years. Yeah. Still to this day, I can see it. His skin turning white as his veins were getting. It was so just messed me up. And that was one thing that I saw as a kid. I wasn't allowed to watch Tom and Jerry or The Three Stooges or Married with Children. Like I was. And I'm aware, like, the violence, man, how it can brainwash you, but I don't want to ban it. I don't know.
It is interesting. I think, we do have to be careful about what kids are watching and are doing. But that's not incumbent upon government. It's the parents.
It's a family role thing.
We were just talking about, there's a video of Ron Paul that went viral, and it is one of the most glorious videos of Ron Paul ever. Luke was like, I've seen that video 1,000,000 times. Yeah. I just retweeted it. I said, Ron Paul is a legend. It's basically a bunch of people who are like, ban drugs, say no. And Ron Paul's like, government shouldn't be the one deciding what you do with your life. But there's this really glorious moment where he's arguing with a guy and he goes, you're not going to get morality from the government. The government can't make you a better person. Why don't they put you on a diet? You're a little overweight. And everyone's like, oh, and I was just like, yes, Ron Paul. Snap. He's right. If you're like, the government should tell us what we can or can't do. It's like, okay, well, they should tell you to put down the fork. No, that's not the way it works. So when it comes to video games, when it comes to South Park, when it comes to Beavis and Butthead, whatever these shows are, because, Beavis and Butthead, believe it or not, is coming back, right? And parents have complained about it. It's your fault. I'm sick and tired of this. And is this really, for the most part, become endemic on the left? I mean, I know the right used to be about banning things. They're like, oh, these things are bad for kids, and, we got to ban this art. Now it's really the left. It's like, the left are the ones coming out and saying, I should have no responsibility.
It is a cop-out, too. What you said about Adam Lanza was pretty enlightening. Like, I think it goes deeper into the psychoactive drug system and how it's making people crazy. And then...
we're talking about parents taking responsibility for what their kids are consuming.
But, like, you can be inundated with violence, but if you're on psychotropics, that's going to be a different inundation.
And what I'm trying to bring up specifically and focus on is... You've got too many people in this country, whether it's people who have kids or somebody who just eats terrible food, who says, you should pay for my healthcare, even though I lay around eating double, Big Macs with extra sauce and don't exercise. Or this video game made someone crazy, so we should have the government take it away from everybody else. Or a crazy person with a gun, therefore no one should be allowed to have guns.
Right.
It's meaningless.
Yeah. And so that's why I'm adverse to when it comes to like video games, because it's the same line of argument when it comes to gun control. And one of the reasons why I became conservative was looking at the various gun control arguments made by Republicans and Democrats, and I was thinking, well, the Democrats one doesn't make any sense, and what else are they being misleading about? And so that's kind of how I went down the rabbit hole.
Right. And it's remarkable how if you're being logical and you hear the conservative argument on guns, you're going to hear something. Typically, they're going to say, the first memes I saw was, why is this gun banned and this gun not banned? And they're the same gun. So one meme is the Ruger 1022 I saw.
Yep.
There's a wooden stock Ruger 1022, and then there's a polymer stock with a pistol grip Ruger 1022. Literally the same gun, same capacity, same firing rate, everything. You just hold it a little bit different. One's under risk of being banned as an assault weapon and one isn't. It's meaningless. So when I would actually go to, the left, the traditional liberal people, and say, why is this gun banned? They'd say, oh, assault weapons got to be banned. And I'm like, they're the same gun. It makes no sense. And you can't get a logical answer out of these people because they don't know what they're talking about. And so I'm just like, listen, if you can't be responsible for your own life, why should I have to pay the price? And that is a serious challenge. I am actually fairly left on a ton of policies. I totally believe in cooperative economics and systems of government. But there is a limit. We have to be liberty-oriented, not authority-oriented. And so what you have with these traditional liberals is they actually, I love this meme from leftists, they're like, Democrats are actually authoritarian right. And I'm like, yes, that's correct. That is absolutely true. The Democratic establishment are somewhat, they're not super far right, all the way at the top, but they are in the authoritarian right spectrum. They want to take away from you. They want to dictate what you do. And they are not overtly far left, but they're close to the left. So they're more authoritarian right. And there's a difference between libertarian right, where it's like, hey man, do your thing, be free and freely trade. Authoritarian right are crony Democrat, corporatist Democrats who have revolving door policies, prop up international corporations and big tech firms, empowering the corporations, and then also telling you what you can or can't do with your life. So I actually think the Democrats and Republicans, the Demoplicans, are fairly in the same place. You do have progressive Democrats who I think too much indulge in the woke cult stuff. And then you have a lot of good libertarian Republican candidates, like politicians, people like, Rand Paul, obviously, Ron Paul, he's retired now, Thomas Massey, and a few others. You have very few actual good principled Democrats at all, but I would say it's a tiny fraction that are actually on the libertarian spectrum. So I tell you, if you believe in freedom, I don't care if you're an anarcho-communist, far left, critical race, woke, whatever. If you're on the libertarian spectrum and your whole thing is, well, I disagree with you, but I don't believe in being violent and hurting others or forcing people to do things, I'll be like, we get along, man. Come over, have a beer. Let's grab a slice of pizza or vegan pizza, if that's what you're into. And then the laissez-faire capitalist can come and then sell us his great pizza, and we can all hang out together as long as we all agree not to oppress and beat and harm each other. But that's not what we're getting. We're getting tons of moral authoritarians who want to use the power of government because they think other people shouldn't do things, or they want to extract the value in labor from other people because they're not responsible for themselves. Thanks for checking out this clip from the Timcast IRL podcast. If you want to see the full show, come back to this channel, youtube.com/TimcastIRL, Monday through Friday at 8 p.m., where you can leave comments and super chat, and we actually will read your comments on the show. Don't forget to like, share, subscribe. And if you want exclusive members-only content, segments you can't get anywhere else, go to timcast.com, become a member, and we even have full bonus episodes. Thanks for hanging out, and we'll see you all next time.